matters of governance. Also coming 20 Police Act and how police reform would change disturbing narratives often centered on the operations of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad of the Nigerian Police Force, be it FSARS or the Tactical Rapid Response Squad. Elizabeth Omoru is here as usual. Elizabeth, what's the lineup like for you on this episode?
On the media review segment this week, we will take a look at information management. Of course, information is the bloodline of any business or organization. It helps to dictate how businesses form strategies. And in Nigeria, how have we been able to manage and access information over the years? That will be our focus on the media review segment.
That sounds quite interesting. Very well, let's begin with the discussion. The ideal and realism of Nigeria, perhaps that which we hold to be the true values of nationhood, responsibility, patriotism, loyalty and faith in committed leadership. All of these couldn't have been more glaring and quenched since October 1 as Nigerians the world over reassessed our national history and tinkered over our collective prospect. I have two guests joining me, mostly young people, and that is because I intend to discuss governance and the Nigerian youth. Ibrahim Farouk, Program Manager, Governance and Development, Yaga Africa, is also a member, not too young to run leadership and strategy team. I also have as my next guest Igwe Ude Umanta, DG, Nigerian Youth Institute for Leadership and Entrepreneurship Development. Gentlemen, welcome to Insight.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will begin with actually getting the view from both of you, but let me just say this. Let me begin by getting your individual perception of Nigeria at 60. Perhaps I should ask you to describe your Nigeria in an idyllic setting, 6 decades after independence. Ibrahim?
Thank you very much, and happy independence. We're still celebrating Nigeria at 60. For me, the Nigeria of my dream is a Nigeria where young people have opportunities to explore their capacity and their potential and bring out the innovation and the creativity that we have, but also to reflect on what are those values that we hold dear that unite us as a nation. I was very glad as I was listening to President Muhammadu Buhari's speech that he said independence is a time for reflection. So individual reflection and reflection together as a country as we reflect on those values that our founding fathers had, especially those values of unity and patriotism that you spoke about in your introduction. That for me is Nigeria at 60.
Igwe?
Yeah, Nigerian at 60, we have to be happy that in spite of our challenges, we have remained united as a country, but we've lost a lot of opportunities. And it is sad that at this point we still are discussing so many things that we should have passed. For instance, I'm happy that the people from a representative for Miaga is here. It was a big achievement talking about not too young to run. But are we even supposed to be discussing that? That is to show where the youths are. By now, it's if you go to look for somebody's vote, the person is supposed to be able to also stand to be elected. These are some of the things the youth see have so many things they are grappling with. The challenges in our education sector, the lack of job opportunities, and the population is blowing, and even the unemployability of those who have passed through school. These are challenges, but we are making progress as a people. There are also grounds. At times, people are very hard on the country, but we have had our challenges, and as a people, we are weathering the storm.
Great. We'll come to more fundamental and critical issues, but for now, I'm sure you've heard time and time again that young people are not just the future of Nigeria. They are Nigeria today. We have a law that engenders youth participation in governance, yet we see a seeming detachment from governance. How do we and what do we do to create cracks in the otherwise closed Nigerian political system? Do you think the youth population isn't trying enough, Ibrahim?
I think the youth population is trying a lot, but the system has been closed for such a long time. And one of the values for the Not Too Young to Run movement are values of inclusion and participation and representation. And what we're asking for with that piece of legislation was an opening of the space, so more young people have the opportunity to participate, especially as candidates. And I think in the last general elections in the year 2019, we actually saw a remarkable increase in the number of young people who indicated interest to run for office, and as well as many who ran and who won, especially in the state houses of assembly and in the House of Representatives. But when you look at participation around voter turnout, for instance, despite the fact that we had about 81 million registered voters, and more than half of those voters were young people. But when it came to voter turnout, those numbers did not correlate into the number of young people who came out to vote. I think those are the areas where we need to start making those changes to ensure that our political parties have policies and regulations that make it easy for young people to run for office. If this includes reducing the cost of nomination forms, ensuring that party primaries are more open, more democratic, more transparent, or even if it's a quota system that is for young people, for women, or for persons with disabilities, we must ensure that our democracy meets those fundamental principles of inclusion, participation, and representation.
Igwe, I like your take on the same subject matter on the seeming detachment of young people from governance. I mean, we have a bill or a law that encourages young people, to participate in politics, and of course, but the irony is that whilst young people are actively partisan, just like Ibrahim have said, they are not forceful enough in taking up roles in governance by initiating the process and seeing it through. I mean, we see young people canvassing for candidates, being in the forefront, but why are they not the ones, there, campaigning perhaps for themselves?
All right, I would tell you that any day you see an average Nigerian youth, you have to give the person a hand. A Nigerian youth is a priceless person because they struggle against a whole lot. And I can just give you an example. You go through school, it's stress. Even now, and our leadership recruitment process is so poor that even in the tertiary institutions, students are not allowed to run their student union government, and when you run, it's a trouble. Let me even give you a personal example. I was a president of student union government some 15 years ago, and I know we ran an independent union and there was consequences, and I'll tell you that consequence. The one is that I didn't get my university degree till this year. It's laughable, but that is the kind of struggle that you have. Students are not even allowed to manage themselves. When you need a job, when you have wasted your time from school, you are asked for each job that you need about 5 years experiences. These are some of the encumbrances that are put everywhere. There are encumbrances on the part of the Nigerian youth. They still surmount it, they still try to survive. And then by the time you are getting like 30 years, you are still looking for a job. You have just left your university that you are supposed to have left earlier, not because of your own making, but because you have frustration in admission. When you get to school, you are spending 2 extra years. You go to a youth service that is not, has no value addition. So there are a lot that Nigerian youths, and then you have a political system that has been so monetized that is it's a merchandise. And then the person does not have the economic power to tussle with those who have appropriated and misappropriated resources of the country. And so these are the challenges, and that's why I agree with my colleague that perhaps if we have to start by deliberate, even if it's quota. I believe in people fighting and getting something. And at times when the youth come out to fight, they will attack.
Fighting now, you mean constructively? Through actions.
No, that's why I say
lobbying for actions.
Engagement. What's happening with the Youth Council is engagement. What's happening with Yaga Africa is intellectual engagement, scholarship. But it's like you are trying.
I just wanted you to be clear that that's what you.
Yeah, that's not clearly. But that's why it is important. But you are struggling against a set system, a system that is already set in its ways, and so the effort that is needed for a generation that is so weakened, is that. So that's why, but it is important, it is good that Now there are a few things that government, particularly this government, is doing very deliberately to allow the youth, participate in the economy, participate in the politics. But we want, that horizon to be widened.
Gentlemen, I mean, I listened to both of you, and I need for you both to clarify an issue for me here, because I mean, I'm a youth myself. Well, if not going by the UN definition of youth now in the Nigerian context, I mean, but let's go back to the issue of challenges. You keep talking about allowing Nigerian youth to do this, allowing. Is it a function of opportunities? Because I do know the opportunities are there. Or is it a function of the youths not being ready and willing to take up the opportunities? Ibrahim?
So I think that young people are actually taking up those opportunities. And I'm going to give a few examples. After the 2019 general elections, in 4 states, there were actually young speakers of the state houses of assembly. So in Zamfara state, there was a 31-year-old speaker of the state house of assembly. In Oyo state, there was a 32-year-old. In Plateau state, there was a 33-year-old. And in Kwara, there was a 34-year-old speaker of the state house of assembly. So we saw young people under the age of 35 who took that bold step to run for office, to win, and also find themselves in leadership positions. And that's the most principal leadership position you can occupy in a state house of assembly. Young people are also holding leadership positions across the various state houses of assembly, in the House of Representatives, where we have a young parliamentarians forum, for instance, and the beneficiaries of the not too young to run legislation as well. 20 of them across state houses of assembly who were under the age of 30 when they won their elections because of the law that we passed. So these are models for us of public leadership who are showing that you can take the opportunity, you can run, you can win. I like what my colleague said about young people learning the ropes, so to speak, in the tertiary institutions through our student union governments. And I think that is a very, very, very good place for you to learn leadership. And many of the leaders that we have now started as student leaders. But just to wrap up as well, I know my colleague also spoke about economic opportunities. I know currently the Ministry of Youth and Sports has a National Youth Investment Fund that it is just about to release, and there are opportunities for young people to tap into that, build your economic capital, and if you have your eye on a political seat, in 2023 I'm sure we'll be seeing your posters as well.
We'll be speaking. That will be fantastic. We'll see Igwe come out in 2023 for a position, public position at least. Let's move on to, having spoken already to the issue of the challenges, let's affirm the importance of having adequate youth representation in policy-making organs of government. Bear in mind that if we go by the UN definition, like I said earlier, of youth, that would mean those within the ages of 15 and 24. But in the Nigerian context, this group of people will be older, slightly older, and they will. Let me go back to the UN definition again that says 15 and 24. That will be a group of people likely to be still part of the dependent population. Okay, but let's recall again that we have the not too young to run legislation, which Ibrahim just made allusions to, made allowance for those within the age of 35 and above, slightly above 25, I beg your pardon, to contest for a place in the House of Representatives, for instance. But my question is this: is a young person of that age critical to decision-making processes and governance and mature enough to make valid contributions rather than making them on Twitter, Instagram, and other social media platforms, as is often the case in Nigeria? Igwe?
Yeah, I think it's a problem of a terrible mindset. And I think it starts from a gerontocratic culture where people think that the young people, they say you are too small, you are still small. And, in 2007, when I just finished as a student union president, I actually wanted to run for House of Assembly. And I was told, that's why I supported not too young to run so much. And that was by zoning and other political calculation. That was when I stood the opportunity to win. I was told that I was not up to 30 years. I knew I was, qualified. I knew I had the mental capacity. I knew I had the temperament. I know I have the, all that it takes to go to the House of Assembly and make valid contributions for my people. I was not able to do that in 2011. And as that time, I was already 31 and I was still told that I was a small boy. You know, it's something terrible, and we have to change from that mindset. Even you talking about policy, the youth policy in itself is sad. I say it everywhere when we stay in national, international conferences, that our situation, I don't know why we allowed it to. Thank God you have given the United Nations definition. Here in Nigeria, in budget, I understood in 2006 that in budgeting for youth development, that UN definition is used, which means the budget office has a different age for youth. The National Youth Service Act pegs it at 30. That's a different one. There's a document called the National Youth Policy, which is a sad document that since the President Obasanjo administration cobbled it up, because I use it cobble up. We were involved in that. It's just that we needed a policy, and then we pushed. There was a policy which we thought would have had reviews, and some of the things that have been done by the civil society now was what that policy, document was supposed to address. And up to now, that one is 35 years. And that's why when you look at it, even when we work for youth councils as consultant, I told them I'm more than 35 years and I cannot do that. So some of these things, I agree. I want to just emphasize that there are people who are less than even 25 years who are capable. If it is this House of Reps that I see and follow, there are Nigerians that I know who are less than 25 years who are capable of staying in that hollow chamber, making quality contribution, taking decisions. Most of them are doing very well in their private businesses. Most of the policy makers are not even looking out for them. At times it is, individual agencies, foundation that recruit these people and then use them. And I think we have to improve in our respect for young people. We have to improve in our trust in them. If economies that control trillions of dollars are handing their countries to people in their 30s, I do not see why it should be a serious matter. Ibrahim talked about those young people that are speakers and that. Very important, very good. If the opportunity, if a push is not given, we want it to. If we want places where people that are in their 20s can be speakers, so that they'll be able to prepare themselves, move from there, and be able to, in their 30s, in their early 40s, stand to, be presidents of this country. Places that are stronger, the economies that are stronger than ourselves, have tried young people and it's worked. There is nothing wrong in our environment. There is basically nothing wrong here apart from our mentality, attitude, structures that have been built, and we have to dismantle those structures, gradually but fast.
Ibrahim, you think in this instance now, considering what we've been talking about in the last couple of minutes, should age now is maturity a function of age or capacity?
No. So maturity and capacity are not a function of age. But maybe just to reply to something that Igwe said. The National Youth Policy was actually reviewed last year, but I guess maybe it was not widely publicized. And the age classification for a Nigerian youth was classified as 15 to 29. And in recognition of a lot of the advocacy, not too young to run, the age in the National Youth Policy has been reduced, but there are so many age classifications. You mentioned the UN, our youth policy, the African Youth Charter now, but I agree with him that age is not a function of maturity or capacity. And just to give a few comparisons, by the time you turn 18, you can join the military, you can join the police, you can be sent to go and take tough decisions in defense of this country. At the age of 18, you're actually an adult. You can be sent to prison. You can enter into illegal contracts. He also mentioned how young people are leading multi-million naira enterprises, companies, and they're able to do amazing stuff. But since we're also talking about Nigeria at 60, as I was reflecting on the history of age within our country, from 1922 in the Clifford Constitution, you could run for the Legislative Council office at the age of 21. and even the Independence Constitution and the 1963 Constitution and the 1979 Constitution, especially the 1979 Constitution, you could run for House of Assembly or House of Representatives at the age of 21. So I think that previously, over the last 60 years, there has been a recognition that young people can contribute immensely. However, the 1999 Constitution increased the age for running for office to 30. But we've been able to bring it down, and hopefully we can get further amendments and open up this space. No one says just because the law is there, we're going to have a 21-year-old president. But let us not criminalize the aspiration of any young person that believes they have the capacity and the character to run for office.
Gentlemen, let me go back to issues like limited capacity, skills, resources, and tools considered as hindrances to youth participation in governance. What should our young population do to develop themselves and perhaps get ready in the first place for such huge responsibilities? Otherwise, they face the continued psychological trauma, I beg your pardon, of hopelessness and misery of being exempted from decision-making processes. Igwe, I'll come to you.
Yeah. What our young people should do is to, first, most of the young people, like we've recognized, are doing quite a lot. The challenges before them are overwhelming. You know, most of us that are on the street with the young people, interact with them every day, meet their, comprehensions and apprehensions. We understand that it is very easy. That's why I say when you see a Nigerian youth, give them a hand. Because it takes a lot of strength not to even break down. It takes a lot of strength. But what we can just do is to encourage them to not allow their spirit to be amputated. Once their spirit is up, once that Nigerian fighting spirit is on, they will be able to overcome through their own creativity, even though most of the times their creativities are not given an opportunity, which is why we cannot overemphasize and the importance, and be grateful to Mr. President for the fund, the Nigerian Youth Investment Fund, which Ibrahim has referred to. It has not happened. It's a novel, and if it can be pushed from there, that youths who have things to do will be able to have access to fund to start with their life. It will engender creativity. It will engender competition. It will, make those who had lost faith. Because one of the problems why people do not even want to improve is this feeling that after all these things, so how do I get access to opportunity? How do I get access to fund? We want the youth to move from such mentality. First of all, deal with your own issue so that when opportunity comes, it will meet with preparedness.
Ibrahim, you want to add to that?
Yes, I think it's very important for young people to build your leadership capacity from a very early age. Because when it comes to time for young people to run for office, yes, you can do that.
Not an happenstance.
Exactly, because many times they say, oh, are young people ready? But I say, even if it's in primary school and you are the head boy of your class or the head girl of your class, that is building your leadership capacity. You go to secondary school, whether you're a class prefect, that is building your leadership capacity. And Igwe mentioned you go to the university or other tertiary institutions and you join student politics. You're building your leadership capacity. Is it in your community? Is it in a religious institution that you belong to, or a cultural association? How are you building your leadership so you're prepared to run for public office? Build your capacity. If you need to find a mentor, find an older person to mentor you. Take courses that will develop you as a person, so that when it comes to time for you to take your pride of place in decision making, and anyone says, oh, you're not ready, you can trace that journey and say, no, I've been ready and I'm ready to do this.
Gentlemen, I cannot agree more with both of you. It's been quite delightful speaking with the two of you. We're totally out of time, but just before I let you go, there is an issue that bites at me most times, and this is not politics per se. Though there are overlapping issues between politics and governance. But then I'm interested in what exactly young adults, and I mean young adults, want in terms of employment. Now, why would they prefer white-collar jobs and the tag of being government employees rather than being entrepreneurs? I think I should start with Igwe there, because this is something you have on your table.
Yeah, I do not know exactly why, but me, I normally feel that it's an already made mentality, and either again because, to be quite frank, our economy was not built in such a manner that the kind of interventions you see now from the CBN and the agencies like NISA, like this fund we're talking about, the facilities that are being deliberately made available now, were not there. Yeah, they were not there practically, even though there will be there like that on paper. So because of it, some people were not thinking towards that. Now, but very importantly is, all of us belong to the same generation and we went to the same school. You know how our school system is built. Our school system is built to give you a certificate to go and look for a job. And that is where it starts. It's a very, very, very bad mentality you are giving to people. We were already leaving university when they brought the course called entrepreneurship. Sadly, you know how they brought it. Was a GST 222. And we saw people in different kind of department, philosophy, English and literature, theater arts, being assigned 222 to teach. Whether I remember one of my lecturers who told me that how can he teach entrepreneur? He has never done business in his life. And so he rejected. It was a bold thing and we loved him for. He told the school clearly that he doesn't know how to teach anybody how to do business because he hasn't done business with his life. So I think that kind of school system was primarily responsible for that kind of a thing. But that narrative is changing because even though they brought entrepreneurship and it was being handled by those who are not entrepreneurs, but it was good they brought it. I think that over time it has changed, progress has been made, and because of it, if you look at young people now, they are actually, because of course the public sector is already saturated, they are forced to take alternative routes.
Ibrahim, you think the mentality is beginning to change?
I agree that the mentality is beginning to change, and we can see more young people who are showing their entrepreneurial spirit. But I think one of the reasons why many young people focus on the white-collar jobs is because they believe there's a lot more stability, and working as an entrepreneur has so many uncertainties. But once the environment for doing business is conducive, I think we're going to see many more young people when we do not have so many challenges with taxation or with power or with regulatory agencies. I think many more young people are going to show their entrepreneurial spirit. We saw a spark of it, especially during the lockdowns and the challenges with COVID-19, where young people were able to start producing face masks, were able to start producing hand sanitizers and disinfectants, and showing that when there's an opportunity and a challenge, young people are innovative enough to find solutions and at the same time find a way to make money from it.
Gentlemen, it's been a delight speaking to the both of you. We're out of time. It's been an interesting session for me. Ibrahim Farouk, the Program Manager, Governance and Development, Yaga Africa. Igwe Ude Umanta, DG, Nigerian Youth Institute for Leadership and Entrepreneurship Development. Thank you, gentlemen, both for coming on the Insight.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for inviting us.
Moving ahead, you will recall that President Muhammadu Buhari recently signed the police bill into law to enhance professionalism in the police force and policing administration and regulation in the country. So clearly, good things are already in the offing for the Nigerian police force. But then, how is that likely to transform the seeming scary profile and quite intimidating notion held by the citizens, sometimes of the police in Nigeria? Najib Bello, a public affairs analyst, joins me via Zoom from Lagos to discuss this very delicate matter. Welcome to Insights, Najib.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Well, I am sure you align with the government on the urgent need to reform the Nigerian police force, or don't you?
Oh, yes, I do. There is very urgent need to reform the police. It's very important we do that as soon as possible. And I'm happy that there are moves being made to do that.
Wonderful. Okay, so we know that police brutality, molestation, unwarranted arrest and torture are issues that we have argued over for many years now, whether they are true or not, and they need for police reforms. What kind of policing, Najib, would you subscribe to in a country like ours?
We need to begin to see policing as a service. Policing is no longer a force or some kind of... We inherited a colonial police. Unfortunately for us in Nigeria, we inherited a police that was not for us, by us. It was foreigners, it was masters who imposed the police force on us. And after they left, we didn't take time to rebuild our police, to recognize us as their customers, as people that they should serve and people that they should help. And somehow it continued to be a relationship of master, servant, and in the middle you have the police force who are enforcing the will of the master. So we had been attempts to change, but because of interruptions of military rule, the police still mainly remained the way it had been from the ancient times. So it's about time we start to reform the police. It's about time we start to change our police so that they recognize the citizens as the people that they are serving, rather than people they have to push around.
Najib, you threw up the issue of force there, the force being attached to the Nigerian police. I mean, this is something that that has come up for debate a number of times. I mean, do you think it's something we should look into again as well, even though there's a new police act right now which has accommodated the force, but do you think it is something we could or should look into in the future?
You see, the force, that word force in our police system, it's a word that still makes it seem like we are being forced around. When some years ago,
because policing is supposed to be a service, right?
A service, yes. So it was one of the main things that was supposed to feature in the police reform, this bill, was that the name, that change of name was going to happen and that force was going to be removed. So if we had removed the force, it would make us feel like we are even if we don't add service, if we don't call it Nigeria Police Service, which I would prefer, but then if we just simply call it the Nigeria Police, it's more of a humane, relatable body than when we keep using that term, the Nigerian Police Force. Well, the name is still there, and maybe in the future we'll be able to do something about it. But for now, I think we should deal with the other issues that it has changed. And going forward also, I think the police, part of what they need is training.
Okay.
And it has been mentioned there, funding, training, because for you to do proper training of our police, you need funding. We're not talking about the training of running in the field, shooting at targets and all of that, but a mental change, a mindset change, and these things don't come cheap. So I'm happy that they've talked about funding the police, and I'm happy that they're talking about reforming the police through training.
Well, when you say that has been mentioned there, I reckon you're talking about the new Police Act. I understand that the new Police Act will, among other things, provide for a more effective and well-organized police force driven by the principles of transparency and accountability in its operations and management of its resources. The word transparency rings out, and very loudly, very loud there, and I mean transparency in operations. I'm sure you'll want to see a culture of transparency that inspires respect and acknowledgement of public confidence in the police force. Najib?
Exactly. When we talk about, first and foremost, in terms of the funding of the police, to some extent, we have to see, when we talk of transparency, we have to see how much is coming in, where it's going into, and what exactly, who is handling what, and what exactly they are doing with it. So that is in terms of the funding.
Okay.
But generally, the police, we need to see through the police generally. In terms of recruitment, you agree with me that right now there is a contest about the last 10,000 people that were being recruited into the police.
Very true.
We need to be able to know, how did you come about these people? Who decided that this is how this recruitment will go through? Who decided how these promotions will go through? Those are the kind of general transparency that we would like to see in the police force, not just in terms of funding or in terms of recruitment, but generally. And they should be forthcoming with information. Not every time we have to go to the police and say, oh, we want to know what happened with this. They should be the ones saying that this happened so and so place, and this is our report regarding it, so that we don't look as if they are being reactionary all the time. Sometimes they should be proactive and come to us and say, something happened here. I know the public hasn't heard about it yet, but something happened here, and this is how it went, and this is how we dealt with it. So that's one of the things we want to see going forward in terms of transparency in the police force.
Najee, quite interestingly, we have had a ban on the special anti-robbery squad.
Special anti-robbery
squad of the response squad of the police. I mean, 4 times in the last 4 years. Each time the group is rejigged, and each time the public outcry, it would seem, is worse. But then, you know, I totally understand how critical units like FSARS and the Rapid Tactical Response Units are to combating criminalities across the country. But don't you think, and for those rejoicing over their absence or banned or partial banned, don't you think their absence would be leaving a vacuum?
You see, in terms of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, what they've done is they've taken a brand new role to themselves. They've become EFCC, they've become the regular police doing stop and search, they've become investigators of basic crimes. I've seen a lot with the SARS. Unfortunately, I've seen a lot with the SARS, and I hope this time there is going to be a change. If there is no change, then there will be need to just totally scrap the unit. You see, Special Anti-Robbery Squad, their name alone says that they are not the basic robbery squad, basic anti-robbery squad. What they should have is better training, almost military training, if not military training itself. They should have specialized weapons. You see a lot of these SARS members, they go around with AK-47s. They should not be going around with AK-47s. They should have more advanced weapons. Now, they are not supposed to be coming out anytime there's even a robbery. It's not all robberies that they should be attending to. Whenever the regular police find a robbery situation, a live robbery situation, not a robbery that happened live.
In essence, you're inferring that they should be like the equivalent of the SWAT in the US.
Yes, that is exactly what they are. Yes, that's what they are supposed to be. They should have special body armor. They should have helmets. They should have special weapons. Everything. So it's whenever the regular police encounter robbers and they're trying to deal with those robbers and it's beyond their capacity, that is when they call on the Special Anti-Robbery Squad to come with special weapons, special tactics and everything to overpower those robbers. Or when the police has done the investigation, the regular police has done investigation, then they go to track robbers somewhere in a hideout, and instead of maybe 3-4 people, they see about 30 well-armed robbers. They now feel, oh, we can't take on these people. They call on the Special Anti-Robbery Squad. That is the only time we should be hearing about SARS.
Okay.
That, oh, it should be like a rumor that, oh, I heard SARS did this. They are not people that should be on the road, mounting roadblocks, searching people, asking them what is in your phone and all of that. It has no business with them. Whether you did Yahoo or you did this, whether you owe someone money or you slap, so whether you're riding a Benz or a G-Wagon, it is not their business. You know, even if you steal from somewhere, you go and pick somebody's pocket. It is not the business of the SARS. They should be dedicated. So that's the training that they should be put through. If they are going to reform them and bring them back, this is what we want to be seeing. We want to be hearing SARS as a very almost invisible force. That, oh, they did this here. You should just be hearing them as if they are a rumor, not somewhat, not people you should see on the roadside every day. You see videos of them everywhere, killing, doing. There should be nothing like that. So after this ban or this suspension or whatever, we want to see the entire reform that is going to come with this whole police reform bill. Let it start with the SARS. That's what we want to see for now. All of us know one or two friendly police officers. We can't deny that.
Of course.
One or two, you must know at least one or two, and you have their numbers. But we need to see more of these people that when you go to them, I've seen police officers that you start wondering, are you sure this man is a police officer or is just one guy they put here to, they actually go into your matter. Oh, how did they happen? Why did you have any issues with them before? And they go into your issues in depth and they are explaining to other officers that I think this is what we should do, that's what we should do. So we need more people. I guess it's the training that those people have and maybe their basic nature. But we need them to spread this attitude. And they need to be made examples of, positive examples of. They need to be rewarded within the force. When a police officer is showing himself as a service giver, is helping the people, they should be rewarded so that other police officers will look at them and say, oh, I need to try to be more like this so that I'll be recognized by my bosses or by the community at large.
Najee, just before I let you go, I'd like for you to speak to key elements of the new Police Act and the parts or the ones that you find quite interesting.
Well,
you could just make a general assessment of the new Police Act.
Yeah, I think there is a lot more to be done in terms of this act. There's a lot more to be done. There's a lot that is going to be done with it. There's a lot of good that is going to be done with it. But then again, I saw some parts that gave me some concerns, and those parts include the ability to arrest without warrant. It can happen. There's allowance for a police officer to arrest without warrant, but we need to define those things clearly. There are issues of, when a death occurs in the police station, keep records. No, it's not just about keeping records. You must make sure that this and that is done. They say, put some effort to see that these people are hospitalized. No, you must make sure they get to the hospital. Then when it comes to issues of bail, it says that a reasonable amount would be asked. You have to make sure that money is not the object of it. Continue to stress that thing, that bail is free. It's only a court that should be allowed to say, pay this amount of money before you go. But for that, I think they should remove that issue of demanding a reasonable amount. So those are the issues I've seen. But then again, generally, I think in terms of the funding it wants to bring in terms of the training it wants to bring in, improving relationship with the community, all of those things will help a lot.
Thank you so much, Najee, for your thoughts on this matter. It's been quite interesting speaking with you and getting your thoughts on this very delicate matter. Najee Bello is a public affairs analyst. He joins us from Lagos via Zoom. Thank you so much for coming on Insight.
Thank you for having me again.
Yeah. Up next is Elizabeth Omoruyi with the Media Review segment.
Data analysts say when government information is managed effectively, it provides the groundwork for strategies to be formed to impact lives. Ensuring that information is available to the right person in the right format at the right time is crucial, and this can be a complicated process. To speak on information management and governance in Nigeria is the Director General, Nigeria National Accreditation Service, Mr. Celestine Okanya. Mr. Okanya, it's nice to have you on Insights.
Thank you for having me.
All right, information is not managed simply for the sake of it. Government information is managed for a purpose, and that purpose is to make every bit of information count towards an outcome. In this regard, How are we responding when we talk about information management in governance?
The response of the government of Nigeria on information management is beginning to pick up with a very serious speed.
Okay.
You can understand that there is government position now to digitalize MDAs. And that will mean that most of the files that you see people carry around may have to disappear very soon.
Okay.
To do this, we need to understand what it means to manage data and information in soft copies.
Okay.
And it is very, very important because you have to know very well how to, first of all, store the information, who and who are qualified to access the information, what happens if the information is not properly saved, and what are the risks, what are the dangers of not managing information very well. So these are all very complicated process, and for us to begin to address the issue, the government has begun awareness program from different MDAs. So first step is awareness, second step is training of all those who we call information managers. There is information manager in every office you can find. Everybody comes in contact with one information or the other. But it becomes even more serious for those handling personal information of people, of our citizens. So information management, yes, is a new area for us, but it's a very important one for the economy.
Okay. You said we have information managers. Are data analysts and researchers doing enough to make information available to the people at the right time? Let's take, for example, COVID-19.
Well, it depends on, that's why, at the beginning I mentioned access to information. If we do things properly, access to information should be as quick as required. You access the information when you need it. When you don't need it, you don't need to access information. So information managers are also properly trained, and that's where training comes in again, to make the information available to the right people, right time, for right purpose.
Okay. Sometimes when we talk about accessing information, organizations, agencies bringing experts to train Nigerians. What is your agency doing in this regard? Can't we have our professionals handle these issues?
We have. You are aware that we have Institute of Information Management, IIM.
Okay.
Is an institute that started in Nigeria, and they have branches almost all over the world now, UK, America, different parts of African countries, but is a Nigerian-born institute, the Institute of Information Management. So we're proud to be having such institute. They are at the forefront of providing trainings and standards for information managers. So I can tell you for sure that we really do not need foreigners to teach us how to manage our information, how to manage our data. Rather, we have professionals who has been going outside the country to provide these services to other countries, because we really were not digitalizing our system. Now that the process starts, we are going to be having most of them come back to the country or remain in the country to teach the information managers what they need to do. But we have enough of them in the country.
I would like to ask you this. Are vital information accessible to Nigerians at the right time? Because there's the issue of herding.
Of course, we have Freedom of Information Bill. So again, information depends. If you want to access private information of individuals, like health information, there are requirements to accessing private information. Some of them you need proper documentation to approve your access to the information. But what matters in our economic process is that those who seek information for the purpose of delivering on their daily services, daily work, for the government or for the people in the process of serving the people, they should be able to access the information. But if you just wake up, oh, you want to know the kind of sickness I've suffered in the last 30 years, you probably need to apply to receive my health information. So there are laws guiding access to information, and there are processes. This is why information management is a very crucial part of the economic development.
All right, Mr. Okaya, with the internet as a driving force, do you see a threat to information and data management in Nigeria?
Of course, it's already a big problem, and because you see all kinds of information and data going out there, unverified information, unverified data, and people tend to believe what they see. And this is why in my agency, our role is to provide accreditation to certification bodies that provide certification for information managers, information systems, because all this requires certification to show that you comply to the international standard set for either the information managers as a skill set, or set for the infrastructure, because every data there is data infrastructure where you can store, retrieve, and all those are infrastructure that require some level of certification. So our role to the country and to the economy is to ensure that everyone who plays in this field are qualified to do so, and the systems that we're putting in place are the ones that meet international standard.
Okay, now that you mentioned that the internet seems to be a threat to data management, what is the way out? In what areas would your agency be helping?
We'll be helping. We'll be working with international, the Institute of Information Management. We'll be working with them, and our first phase of work is to begin to train professionals within different MDAs on what it takes to manage information. Then we will begin to create more awareness on what information you could believe and what you should not believe, because everybody thinks that what you see on the internet or Facebook, they are all correct information, which is not true. Our second step will be to begin to create standards of conduct, standards of information processes in the offices. Those standards are meant to be complied by the MDAs that are involved in some of these processes, or service providers on information and data management. So we will do the training, provide certification programs, which the IIM, which is Institute of Information Management, they will be the key partners in the training and in the certification. Our role is to provide accreditation to show that what they are doing, certification they are providing, meets international standard.
Okay, very interesting. Now, when there's information leakage, how do we handle this? Could there be control?
Information leaks all the time. What matters? What kind of information leakage are we talking about?
Government.
For example, government information. You know, there are some information you say is classified information.
Yes.
Classified information leakage is a very serious matter, especially when it involves security and our national defense. Again, another area that is very important and very serious matter if it leaks is private information, like your financial data that can pose a threat to your finances, your account, bank account, and health information. These ones, if it leak, then there is a gap or breakdown in the structure or standards that are put in place. And it's easy to trace, and that's why we're talking about standards. It's easy to find where the responsibility is when it breaks down, if they have a system in place that complies with international standards. In my office, we have 95% paperless environment.
Okay.
And so we hardly have anything to do with paper, but it's not every part of our computer system that every staff have access to. There are places in my office that the finance people do not have access to. The program people have their own limitations. So it's easy to manage data that is in soft copies because you can lock and you can padlock them the way you want, password them. Yes. So when there is a leakage, it's easy to track where it happened and who did what.
All right, Mr. Celestine Ochaya, Director General, Nigerian National Accreditation Service, thank you so much for coming on Insight to provide insight as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
And that's it on the Media Review segment this week.